Hello, everybody. So, as you know by now, Mondays and Sundays are days where I cover strategy. And we got some news today, although not the news that I suppose I was expecting. I had doubts. I didn't say that in the video yesterday, but a few exchanges on X I had with a few community members. Some weeks you just need to hodl. Well, yeah, he actually meant that he did not buy, and he did not buy this week. This was confusing. What was confusing in my view is the dot chart. Like, he tweeted the dot chart. Last time he didn't buy, he had not tweeted the dot chart. So this time he tweeted the dot chart, and he did not buy. So that's quite interesting. It's confusing. I think it's confusing, and that's good because it means that Semler is still the volatility master, and watch and see next time he may do a tweet like this, and he may buy. So we don't really know when he buys and he doesn't buy, and he's the master of the game. He's in control, and that's what needs to happen. Now, that's the minor news, the no-buy news. The big news today is this: the third ATM for the preferred has been announced. The STRD ATM is here. He did a 4.2 billion STRD ATM, of course. So that's the second quote-unquote smaller ATM that we are getting. And so I wonder what the reason is for that. As you know, on this channel, I believe that the Strife ATM for 2.1 billion, I believe that's too small. I think he's gonna run out of money soon, and this one also, I believe it is too small, which is why I kind of have a new theory now. What if Semler actually announces these small ATMs in order to be able to make new announcements in the future, in order to have that news value, that volatility linked to the news? Kind of the same theory I've been having, about buying. Well, Semler buys every week. That's a big deal. But you have Metaplanet who buys every other day. That's an even bigger deal. That's even more opportunities to be in the news cycle. And so maybe by doing smaller at the market offering, maybe he is more in the news cycle. The presentation is great. Frankly, most of the video presentation, the 40 minutes, most of those 40 minutes doesn't have much to do with the STRD offering, but it is still quite interesting. So the STRD offering, 10% cash, of course, and that's a non-cumulative dividend. There is not a forcing clause, which means that there's a higher risk that the dividend may be skipped, as we know. The BTC rating on STRD is 5.6, and it's actually a smaller BTC rating than Strife. He presents later in the presentation, Strife has a BTC rating just above 7. Of course, the debt instrument of MicroStrategy with the highest BTC rating is the converts, with one of the converts having a BTC rating of something like a 70. So least risk, partial upside. So that's the pyramid he republished. So you can see Strife. He put Strife on there. Strife on there is a crown jewel. That's why Semler has said there's only 2.1 billion ATM on it. Well, if 2.1 billion ATM is on Strife, then explain to me why there is a $21 billion ATM on the converts. Like I said, the converts, he describes it as the least risk and the most partial upside, and therefore I don't think we're going to see much converts left. STRD is lower in the capital structure. STRD is lower in seniority. So STRD is riskier than Strife. STRD is riskier than Strike. But of course, the volatility of STRD is actually lower than all three main instruments regularly ATM'd by MicroStrategy. So this is low volatility, high yield, low seniority, not as low as MSTR. MSTR is the lowest seniority, but lower seniority. So it's going to fit a role in the capital pool, and the 4.2 billion offering on there is very appealing. And of course, now Semler is going to have an option for every market, for every demand. Notice also in the presentation, if you watch this presentation, which I did, he explains how their goal when they ATM is to not influence the market price. They don't want to influence the market price. They are price takers. They will look at the volume of the market, and they will offer strike, MSTR, or STRD. They will offer the securities based on the demand of the market, and they will try their best to not influence the price. I think that's a new information that may not be widely spread. A lot of people seem to argue and say, oh, well, when the ATMs, he actually lowers the price and he prevents the MNAV to go up, especially for MSTR ATM. In that video, he actually says they are very careful about not doing that, and they're only taking the excess volume and selling into strength, selling into excess volume. This is a pattern we see with other BTC treasury companies, like, for example, the Sparta Web company or Metaplanet company, who only sell into strength. Of course, the strike, STRD, and in the past, the converts, these instruments, they were designed to capture the credit market. This is a new slide that Semler is showing about the pools of capital and institutional capital specifically. And, kind of highlighting the fact that there's only about 3 trillion of people who want to buy commodities, of institutional money that wants to buy commodities, i.e. wants to buy Bitcoin outright. And much of those 3 trillion is already into gold. And Semler doesn't see a lot of these institutional investors just sell their gold to buy Bitcoin. So you're really only left with 700 billion of private capital who can potentially freely buy Bitcoin. But then, of course, they can buy Bitcoin, they can buy Solana, they can buy silver, they can buy gold, they can buy uranium, they can buy whatever. And so you're really competing in a red ocean, an ocean of a lot of competition. There's a lot of competition for buying the commodity. Bitcoin is competing against a lot of other things that people could buy. Land, right? Land is another big one that people could buy. So that's when land is not really a commodity. But the point is 60 trillion, there's 60 trillion of credit, and there's much more money, 30 times much more money is available to actually buy equity or buy credit compared to the money available to buy commodities, to buy Bitcoin. And so that's why we need to have Bitcoin wrapped in an equity wrapper, right? That's MSTR, the MSTR ticker symbol, or Bitcoin wrapped in a credit wrapper. That's the preferred, and the preferred really unlock a much bigger pool of capital. That's $60 trillion pool of capital. And that's a new chart from a new source, right? We know the Bitcoin 24 model. Semler uses another estimate, a different estimate. Actually, in the Bitcoin 24 model, the pool of capital looks even bigger in the Bitcoin 24 model. But that helps us understand why there's these preferreds. These preferreds allow Bitcoin to infiltrate the credit market in a way Bitcoin just can't infiltrate institutional capital if it stays in its pure form. Okay, moving on to the big announcement number 2 of the day, and he touches into that presentation. And I will quote Fong Li. Fong Li says at 3 minutes and 32 seconds, he says, "We are among the top 10 companies in the world for operating income." And of course, when Strategy posts big loss, this makes the headlines. It's all over the internet. When Strategy posts a huge gain like this, I still have to see it on a mainstream website. I still have to see the news getting widespread of this. I saw it on Yahoo Finance, so kudos to Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance is the only place where I've seen it. MicroStrategy is going to post being in the top 10 companies for operating income this quarter. This is pretty insane. And of course, this is all based on the accounting change and GAAP accounting, and obviously. But like I said before, we're gonna keep the double standard going. It's like, yeah, that's how companies are judged. So all of a sudden we should do it right for MicroStrategy. No, this is how companies are judged. So let's see that news be spread out, please. That news has to be spread out. That they are now top 10 companies among operating income. Why? Because GAAP is real, right? GAAP is totally real. So that's the news that I want to see spread out. This is a big deal. This happened because Bitcoin closed very favorably last week for MicroStrategy's recognition on their earnings. It closed very high. We got lucky this time. You may remember last quarter, we weren't as lucky last quarter, and a lot of people were disappointed, right, in early January when Bitcoin didn't close where we had hoped for them to recognize a gap earnings. So this is a celebration. This should be on the news, but it's not, unfortunately, and maybe we have to wait for the formal announcement of their Q2 and the formal conference call for this to be spreading in the news. Question number 3, point number 3, celebration number 3. I don't know, but this is actually a big deal. So this response of Elon Musk was a big deal. Someone asked Musk, "Oh, will the America Party?" And of course, that's the news cycle of the day. Elon Musk trying to create a third party. But will the third party, so the American Party that Elon Musk trying to push, will it embrace Bitcoin? And look at what Musk says: fiat is hopeless. So yes, it will embrace Bitcoin. Whoa, that is a big news. So does that mean that Tesla is going to accept Bitcoin payments for cars and other endeavors? I don't know, robotaxi, whatever. Does that mean that? Does that mean that Elon Musk is going to buy Bitcoin for Tesla, buy more Bitcoin for Tesla, or even become a Bitcoin treasury company? Of course, why do I talk about that? Because if you've been around for a while, you may remember that the 2021-2022 Bitcoin cycle, a lot of that spike was due to Tesla buying Bitcoin. And it was a love-hate relationship. Everybody started loving Elon Musk in the Bitcoin community, and then he sold, and then everybody started hating him. So it was a complete mess, but will he come back to Bitcoin? Well, I clearly remember the pop that it did to the Bitcoin price back then when Tesla bought Bitcoin. That was a huge deal. If there is any positive news on that end, I believe it will be a huge deal for the price of Bitcoin. And of course, Semler has been instrumental in the early days in orange pilling Elon Musk. I think that's what happened, although he never formally said. But it's highly, highly possible. I mean, given their exchange on Twitter, that they had a call, and then when Elon likely bought the Bitcoin as a result of Michael Saylor orange pilling. And Michael Saylor, we know Michael Saylor often comments on Elon Musk. Michael Saylor is still working hard trying to keep orange pilling Elon Musk. Bitcoin is based on physics. We're saying, you should look into Bitcoin. And the last point. So yes, we didn't get a buy from Strategy today, and that's probably because we're closing the books for this quarter. That's probably the reason why there is a quiet period. So that's probably the reason why I should have known better. But anyways, that's okay though, because even though MSTR didn't buy this week, look at the flurry of buys we got this week, and these are by the way, these are some of the bigger contenders, right? There's a few very, very small companies who bought like 10 Bitcoin, 20 Bitcoin, 80 Bitcoin there. Like, now there's hundreds of Bitcoin treasury companies, but these are the bigger ones. These are the more original ones. And look at them. They all bought, right? Semler Scientific bought, Blockchain Group bought, Smarter Web Company bought, Simon Gerevich at Metaplanet bought. So a big day for Bitcoin treasury companies today. And of course, Saylor is preaching, and Saylor is celebrating the quote-unquote competition. And of course, that's a big misnomer in Bitcoin, because there is no competition. The more people join the industry, the more everybody wins, because it's the key word of the day is it's a reflexive loop. It's a loop where since it's a fixed supply, everybody who joins the network benefits the network. It's like you speak English, everybody speaks English. The day someone else learns English, your knowledge of English just became more valuable, because all of a sudden you can communicate with an extra person. Same story as when people join the telephone, Facebook, whatever, all of these social media. This is a major deal that these companies are joining the movement. And of course, the main belief that I think a lot of us have, that I have, is that eventually all companies will be Bitcoin treasury companies, because eventually, companies will just have to buy Bitcoin instead of buying. Well, they won't have to, but it will be the fiduciary duty to do. The fiduciary duty thing to do, it will be to buy Bitcoin and not actually own government bonds who devalue over time. And I believe Bitcoin is going to be a much, much better way to do it than, say, for example, do stock buybacks. But anyways, we're still very early in this. We're still very early stage. So This was not investment advice, not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I hope you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.